Ladies and gentlemen, we are interviewing Mr. Tim Deese of Progressive Basics International on manufactured certified programs.
Thank you very much for coming in today. I'm sorry you called me casual, but I'm real happy to do this. It's been a long time since we talked about certified programs. To take you back in time a little bit, some of the older dealers and corporate guys will remember this. These are some of the cups from the original certified programs that I was involved in from the first scratch pad through implementation and run as long as 10 years. To give you an idea of how certified came back into play in our country first, the certified programs today are not the first that were ever brought into our industry. They actually go all the way back to 1927. I did not know that until contacted by BMW for the first one we ever did. In 1987, I went to Montvale, New Jersey and met my soon-to-be liaison with BMW, who would write and launch BMW globally with me, Tom Knighton. At that time, there were a lot of things I needed to know. I remembered OK used cars. I remembered A1 with Ford. I remembered a lot of the certified programs that GM and Ford had, but taking it back, I researched it and found that Studebaker in the 20s actually did the first one, which told me why a manufacturer did a certified program in the first place. Studebaker's residuals and the values of their vehicles and cars had dropped to the point that the banks did not want to finance them. They had to do a program to build stability in the pre-owned Studebakers being traded in. There came Studecare. That helped with a lot of different manufacturers back in that era. And then the boom came after the war, etc., 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 and everybody got fat and happy in the 50s and got lazy and started building cars that, quite honestly, were really not that up to speed. They looked really good and they were fast. But the problem was 12 months, 12,000 miles meant exactly that, because at 12,000 you started spending money. Now, with Chevrolet, for example, when OK used cars came out, they made a big splash of the fact that their vehicles were superior pre-owned to anyone else's. They did a very good job in several different areas that we found and uncovered that we brought back, such as reconditioning. How to teach a pre-owned manager to teach his or her porter how to recondition a vehicle. How to teach that secondary product to new to a sales force to merchandise it. Now, here's the simplicity of this. BMW was our first one. Let me go down the line. BMW first, Lexus was second. They came 2 years after BMW. We had the privilege with Lexus. From the very first day, Dave Ellingworth called me. He was the head of the Lexus ship at that time, and Bob Newman and Gary Marcotte headed up certified, and there was really no product to sell. And they knew I had been involved in the entire process with BMW, which was extremely successful, but they wanted to take it one level up. Lexus by far launched in '89 with the most beautiful launch of all of them I've ever done. Then, of course, we did Saab, which, believe it or not, was the most fun one I ever did. Those dealers and managers, even though they're little, really loved it. Honda called their program in Canada Gazork. And then there's Cadillac Cup down there. But the ones that didn't have cups, like Volkswagen and Acura and Bentley, still followed the same mold. Now, going back to the progression, in the mid-'60s, they made an attempt to revitalize General Motors programs, And I sought out a very old friend of mine, Dennis Higginbotham. Well, Dennis, I'm sorry, you're not really that old. You weren't then. Who was the COO of Sonic at the time that I called him about his time with General Motors in the mid-60s when he worked on the OK used car problem. His department, his job was actually going around training porters on making certain that the OK cars were actually done the way they were supposed to be done. That's something I learned I had no idea that had ever happened. Now here on the launch of every one of these was the key. We had the manual that we had done very nicely, printed very nicely, beautifully scripted. It was nice. But the key was we had to launch it live. Now, when we did the implementation, when the dealers and their managers came in each zone to launch the certified, here is the philosophy that we used. Now, this may seem a little far-fetched to you, but if you think about it, it's what we're not doing today. Now, if your wife looks at Paula Deen to learn how to bake a cake, or you watch Bobby Flay to learn how to cook a steak, you are listening to them and watching this process actually take place. Now, if you only go online and order the recipe, and it says, take a pinch of this and a smidget of that, then you are doing what you think might be right based on this piece of paper you're reading, because you never really saw it done. You never had an opportunity to ask or see the way it was done. When Paula goes, take a pinch of salt, you see what a pinch is, or a smidget, or actually whirling the eggs in batter. You see them doing it, so you know what the texture should be like. Now, when .com hit, we were still heavily involved with several manufacturers. And it was almost like overnight that they decided corporately that they wanted to become more technologically advanced and take this to an internet training level. Now, everybody was very excited about IT, and they had been taught at that time how to do certified, and it was rocking. If you remember, it was doing very well, because you have three products in your store. You have new, you have certified, and you have pre-owned. Pre-owned or trades. Now, all of a sudden, this has all been mixed in this batter where they're all the same, and it's kind of turned to the factory today saying, we kind of really just want you to have your own make. And pre-owned, I called BMW, which floored me when I heard this certified guy say to me, Tim, I don't ever want to see anything on a BMW dealer's lot but a used BMW. And I said, doesn't that kind of take away from everything that, he said, I don't know about that, but this is today, that was then. Well, way to go, Ace. When we look at our dealers, we know that the biggest percentage of these pre-owned certified cars are going to be sold with a trade-in, and a lot of those are off-make. Our job in launching was to teach these managers how to be competitive in taking out an off-make and selling that certified, and then reconning that off-make car, making money in service and parts, and retailing it for a profit as well. It was a chain all the way down that has since been lost somewhere out there. Now, I really believe that certified is more than a factory selling a warranty to a dealer, which is basically what we hear in class today. At Digital Dealer or the conferences or 20 groups, I ask them every time I'm in that room, Is your certified program working for you? By far, the vast majority go no. And when you actually do the spreadsheets that we used to do, that really they no longer look at this way, we take trades, we take certified, and we take new, and we break down average amount of time in stock, what was grossed on them when they sold them, how many of them were wholesale, how many of them were kept to retail, what was the pure net. Now this is something you won't learn in software programming. What is the pure net on the certified vehicles that you sold? Because if you got the wholesale loss against it with no gross on the front side, and it had aged out of its ability to make a profit because of holding cost, then what have we really done at the end of the day? Yes, ma'am.
Why do manufacturers want the certified program?
In the beginning, as right now, certified programs will maintain high residuals. That's good for the factory and good for the dealer, because the more their product is worth, the easier it is for a customer to trade back into another vehicle because they have equity. Now, they lose that edge, and that residual starts dropping. Those cars start dropping at the auction. The dealers are not picking them back up and retailing those cars. The book goes out from under them. That absolutely is the worst nightmare a manufacturer can have when a product slips. Now, we work with the powers to be. For example, a good example would have been Passat. You know, we knew what Passat was really doing on these lots. And the book was taking a little bit of a drop in them, and it was from actually a fleet dump more than anything else, but nobody really realized it. So I was able to take hard facts and go, here is the worth of the Passat 1, 2, 3 based on inventory value and sellability. And we actually were able to get that readjusted. So the certified has a place. The problem is the live implementation with the factory working with the dealer hand in hand. I don't see that today. You know, I can tell you first and foremost, from being involved in more certified programs than any company out there, that the key to a successful manufacturer program is in the relationship with the individual that we have, that the factory has assigned to us. I can go through each one of these and tell you the ones that were easy to implement and the ones that were tough. We had one of these that was extremely successful real quick, so that individual got promoted. So they sent us another one. And in the middle of a launch, we had to start training that person over again, and that person could have cared less. So, you know, it's very important that we in the factory and the dealers understand the message. And we mix the batter, and we understand what a pinch is, and we understand what a smidgen is. Thank y'all for coming in today. I hope you got what you wanted.
Tim, thank you very much.
You are welcome.